for whom I'm substituting.
Thank you. I am David Webster, chair of this committee. Our officers, well, they're not all here. Oh. Are Fiona Hunter, Development Services Team Manager, Natalie Scully, Principal Planning Officer, Jonathan Smith, Planning Officer, Laura Zielinski, Legal Services, and Vicky Davis, Democratic Services. I respectfully request you switch all mobile phones and devices onto mute. Please also be advised that this meeting may be recorded by a member of the general public, and we may have a number of press and public who are observing the proceedings via Teams. Public speaking. There are 5 public speakers today. This meeting will be broadcast live. The microphones within the room will pick up the sound for the broadcast and should be used to enhance this. Please speak slowly and clearly directly into the microphone. No participation in the meeting is allowed by members of the public in attendance. Please do not circulate any documentation or photographs, etc. They will not be considered today. Please do not communicate with councillor or pass notes during the meeting. Agenda item 2, minutes of the last meeting on the 11th of June 2026 to agree a correct record. Is it your wish that I sign these as a true record? All those in favour? Proposer was Councillor Morehouse, seconder Councillor Hugo. All agreed. Declaration of interests. Well, may I start the ball rolling? I wish to declare an interest in agenda item 6 for transparency reasons, as Councillor Thompson is the applicant and is a member of this planning committee. We are members of the same political party. There is no relationship or connection that would preclude me from determining the item. In addition, Councillor Thompson previously mentioned this application to me, and the nature of that conversation did not go beyond acknowledging the application was due to be considered by this committee, and I do not consider it amounting to a lobbying. I have an open mind and will consider the application on its planning merits. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to declare an interest in agenda number 6 for transparency reasons, as Councillor Thompson is an applicant and is a member of the planning committee. There is no relationship or connection that would preclude me from determining the item. I have an open mind and will consider the application on its planning. I have been lobbied about this application to vote against it, and I have had a brief conversation with Councillor Thompson, which I don't consider to be lobbied. Thank you very much.
Morning, everybody. I wish to declare an interest in agenda item 6 for transparency reasons, as Councillor Thompson is the applicant and is a member of this planning committee, and we are members of the same political party. There is no relationship or connection that would preclude me from determining the item. I have an open mind and I will consider the application on its planning merits. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morehouse.
I would like to reiterate the same and declare that item 6, for transparency reason, Councillor Thompson is the applicant and the member of this planning committee, as well as we are members of the same political party. There is no relationship or connection which will preclude me from determining the item. I have an open mind and I will consider the application on its planning merits, as I do on all planning applications. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
I wish to declare an interest in agenda item 6 for transparency reasons, as Councillor Thompson is an applicant and a member of the planning committee, and we are members of the same political party. There is no relationship or connection that would preclude me from determining the item. I have an open mind and I will consider the application on its planning merits. Councillor Thompson has mentioned this application to me, but only in order to ask that I might substitute for him in this meeting.
Councillor Peacock.
I wish to declare an interest in agenda item 6 for transparency reasons, as Councillor Thompson is an applicant and is a member of this planning committee, and we are members of the same political party. There is no relationship or connection that would preclude me from determining the item. I have an open mind and I will consider the application on its planning merits.
Councillor Hugh Gill.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, wish to declare an interest in agenda item 6 for transparency reasons, as Councillor Thompson is an applicant and is a member of this planning committee. And we are members of the same political party. There's no relationship or connection that would preclude me from determining in this item. I have an open mind. I will consider on its planning merits. But I have got to point out that I have been referred to the standards as it was deemed that I was in breach of my code of conduct at the previous meeting on this. I am still waiting for a full explanation from the monitoring officer on this one. We'll see what happens in the next hour or two as to whether I stay in for this one.
Just wanted to add to my comments that I was referred to the Standards Committee, and the Standards Committee are not taking it any further. Item is that all on declaration of interest? Item 4 is the application for McDonald's for Scotch Corner. And it's going to be presented by Natalie Scully.
Thank you, Chair. This is a hybrid plan application which seeks full planning permission for a drive-through restaurant alongside access, servicing and landscaping, and outline permission with all matters reserved for an electric vehicle charging facility on a parcel of land at Scotch Corner. This is the location plan for the application site. The red line boundary covers the southern half of the site, and the land outlined in blue is in the same ownership, which extends further north. The site is accessed from the A6055 by an existing vehicular junction from the southwest corner of the site. There are 2 bus stops along the A6055, which are just here on both sides of the road, and there's an uncontrolled pedestrian crossing point close to the roundabout. The site is highlighted here with the blue circle. In terms of surroundings, the A1M lies to the east and the A6055 lies to the west. Immediately adjacent to the west of the site is the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency site, which caters for vehicle enforcement and testing, including HGVs, which is just that parcel there. And further east lies the Scotch Corner rest area and the village of Middleton Tyres. The conservation area in Middleton Tyres is over 0.5 kilometres from the application site, and a Holiday Inn lies to the southwest. This is the existing site plan. The current use of the site is vacant grassland and is relatively flat. The site is graded as Grade 3 agricultural land. The red parts on this plan show elements which are to be removed, which includes 3 trees on the northern boundary, a small part of the perimeter hedge close to the western boundary, and 4 individual hawthorn trees. All of these are categorised as C2, low quality. Additionally, the fence, gate and white lines are also to be removed at the entrance. This is an image taken from the existing access point looking east. Markings on the left here are the DVSA exit markings from their site. This is an image of the exit from the DVSA site with the application site to the right hand side here. This is a view of the site looking towards the southern boundary and the existing band of trees. And this is taken from the existing access point looking towards the junction with the A6055. And this is the eastern boundary with the A1M in the background. And this is looking towards the northern section of the site, and these trees here are to be removed. This is the proposed block plan for the application. The drive-through restaurant is to be located centrally in the southern part of the site, alongside a car park, and the EV charging facility is located further north. And then further landscaping is proposed to the north of this. The existing access point around here is to be upgraded, and detailed plans are provided to show this, which will be later in the presentation. This is the proposed site plan, so zoomed in a bit more detail. So the drive-through restaurant, which is located here, is rectangular in shape, with the drive-through wrapping around the building. And just to confirm, the drive-through can cater for 16 vehicles waiting. 55 car parking spaces are proposed, alongside 2 accessible bays and 3 motorcycle bays. For the restaurant specifically, there are 4 electric vehicle charging points and 20 electric vehicle charging points with a separate facility. Cycle parking is provided, and a patio and children's play area is located to the west of the restaurant, and a call area is located to the north, which provides for deliveries and storage. These are the elevations of the building. It's single story and has a flat roof, and constructed a mixture of materials including dark grey brick, grey cladding and timber effect cladding. Black fenestration is proposed, and a green roof is also proposed on the top. So this is the roof plan, which shows the servicing facilities, and this is the ground floor of the restaurant plan, which shows the kitchen areas, dining areas, and staff areas and restrooms. So in terms of the access points, these are the detailed highway drawings, and there have been a number of discussions between highway bodies, notably National Highways and North Yorkshire Council Highways Department. The site here is on the right, with the A6055 to the left. In terms of highway works at the site access and on the approach, it is proposed to extend the central reserve on the A6055 to deter U-turning movements into the site. New directional signage will be placed on existing cycle posts, and signage will be utilised at the entrance to deter HGVs from accessing the site. The footway is to be realigned, so it's a bit further into the junction now, and this will be 3 metres wide along the A6055, which reduces to 2 metres into the site. Further speed control features will be located at the drive-through exits. The site has been subject to a stage 1 road safety audit with further actions required, and these will be progressed through to a stage 2, 3 and 4 road safety audit. This is a Google Street View image of the existing junction and the central reserve. So the new central reserve will start where this red circle is on the plan. And just to clarify further, I made a few notes on this plan from last time, just to show that the central reserve extends, well, it starts here and it extends up and then stops just short of the roundabout, below, just before the road markings there. So this green section here will not be central reserve, that will be left open. And the red line shows the new central reserve. These are the landscaping plans. So there's wildflower meadows, which is highlighted in green blue. Verges are shown in light green, and a shelter belt of trees and shrub planting is highlighted with the blue circles. The hatched blue area to the west is grassland, and 14 trees are to be planted, which is focused mainly in the southwest corner here, especially trees. And to the north of the site, the wildflower area and grassland extends further into the land edge blue. And this is back to the proposed site plan, and this concludes the presentation. To confirm, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions listed within the report, and a legal agreement to secure highway improvement works, BNG requirements, and a contribution to monitor the travel plan. And there are no further updates to present since the publication of the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Our public speakers are, first of all, an objector, Steve Hill, who is a local resident. And I just remind you to speak well into the microphone so that those of us who are not too good at hearing can pick up what you're saying.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to address the committee. I represent a number of residents in Middleton Tyres and elsewhere, and we have three key objections to this planning application. Firstly, there is no need for yet another fast food outlet at Scotch Corner Motor Services already has 5 fast food outlets, and approval was given for a drive-through facility on that site in January 2023. Approval was given in November 23 for 2 fast food outlets on the Dalesway Lodge site, and the Designer Outlet Village plans to have 27 restaurants and cafes. Approval has been given to convert Barton Truck Stop, just over a mile north of Scotch Corner, to become a MSA. And there are plans for an MSA at Junction 52 for Catterick, just 5 miles south, which includes a McDonald's outlet. Secondly, Scotch Corner roundabout already gets congested at busy times, and every additional facility will make it worse. The DOV forecasts 12,000 visitors a day, and the opening of the 37-unit warehouse and distribution facilities on the former caravan park will add even more commercial vehicles using the roundabout. Additionally, the A66 upgrade is forecast to increase traffic volumes using the roundabout by 35%. This and other applications not yet operational represents planning traffic chaos. Thirdly, pedestrian and cycle access to the planned McDonald's site is fraught with hazards for people crossing the A66 West and A6055 dual carriageway, which have no pedestrian control crossings. Families staying at the Holiday Inn may well wish to use the McDonald's facilities, but would face a clear risk in making the journey. There have been 17 strong objections from local residents, and both Middleton Tyres and Moulton parish councils have registered comprehensive objections to this application. There has been no local support registered on the NYCC planning website. As a group, we have been asking for years for a strategic review of the combined traffic impact of all the approved and proposed planning applications that surround Scotch Corner, but the council continues with its piecemeal approach. Approval of this application will be detrimental to the local quality of life and to all road users. The committee is encouraged to dismiss this application. There are more than enough fast food facilities available at Scotch Corner, and we neither need nor want a McDonald's. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. The parish council now is represented by David Henderson. That's the parish council of Middleton Tyres.
Is it possible to put the map of the roundabout on the screen? It's not a dedicated service area. It has to share with through traffic and local traffic. If you're travelling up the A1, you probably don't even notice Scotch Corner. If you're going west, yeah, you pull off and dip round Scotch Corner for a short distance. We live there. Unless I want to go to Croft, which doesn't appeal to me that much, I have to go to that roundabout. Next Friday is the beginning of the school holidays. Go there and just see what sort of chaos there's going to be. Even greater this year, because the traffic lights aren't working properly. Someone crashed into them and smashed them, so they have to put up temporary lights. Now, the reason I've asked for the map is if you look at that, you'll see that to get into this setup, we've got nothing against McDonald's as such. It's where it is and what it's going to do in terms of impact. You have to go down the slip road as if you're going to Newcastle, round the roundabout, back up the other side and turn left. If you're coming from the west, it's fairly easy. You just one turn into it. If you're coming from the north, you have to use half the roundabout. Listen to how many times I say go around the roundabout. You have to go around half the roundabout in order to go down the slip road, back up the thing and into the services. If you're coming from the south, it's about two exits. But listen to what happens when you have to come out. When you leave this place and you want to go south, that's your easiest exit. You have to come out, turn left, hit the roundabout, go halfway around the roundabout, and then exit south. If you're going west, you leave, go all the way around the roundabout to the last exit, right around Scotch Corner, in order to go west. Now, what about if you want to go north? You come out, turn left, you have to go right around the roundabout, not just to the last exit, back to the exit you came out of, to get onto the other side of the carriageway to go down off to Newcastle. The chaos that that particular position is going to create is what you've got to concentrate your mind on. It's not just the trouble that happens at Scotch Corner because there are services, it's because of where it is and how complicated it's going to be. Add on to that people getting lost. We already get people coming from the south, getting onto the left-hand lane and wanting to go into Scotch Corner services. And I want to go north to Newcastle. And you can probably guess what happens. And it happens all the time. Near misses, there's going to be a crash. This is going to be made worse. It's the worst possible place to put it. All of my comments are really in addition to my colleague from Middleton Tyres, because I agree with all of those things. What's going to happen? We've been told an extra north lane on the North Bridge. We've been told we're going to get an extra dedicated lane exiting from the services. You've got to remember, every time I go out, and residents from Middleton Tyres go out, they come up to the services and stop, because there's a queue from the service exit right to the roundabout. There are no traffic lights. You have to get out in between the traffic lights from Penrith and Newcastle, and that's a couple of cars at a time. That's what has to happen. And when you get to summer holidays, bank holiday Fridays, bank holiday Saturdays, it's even worse. It is the worst possible place to put a service centre. Obviously, Scotch Corner services have been there for years. That's better. This is the worst possible place, and I think you should throw this one out.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. The next speaker is the agent for the applicant, Jonathan Wallace. And also, the committee should note that Andrew Mosley from the AMA, a highways engineer, is in attendance should members have relevant questions. Yeah, just come to our microphone.
Chair, with your permission, I'm going to speak briefly, but I'm going to hand over to Mr. Mosley for the remainder of the 5 minutes.
Need 5 minutes.
We won't. Thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Jonathan Wallace from Lichfields, who are the agents for this application. I'm not going to speak for long because I spoke at the committee last month, which I'm sure you will recall. From a planning perspective, I think the case officer has addressed all the relevant issues in the report. I just want to briefly highlight the key benefits of the scheme. Now, clearly, the scheme will deliver a new modern format McDonald's restaurant, which will create around 120 employment opportunities, which will be accessible and attainable for young people. And that's an obvious material consideration in favour of the application. But it will also deliver an EV charging hub with 20 electric vehicle charging points in an ideal location adjacent to the strategic road network. Furthermore, the scheme will also deliver a significant enhancement in terms of landscaping and biodiversity. The restaurant itself incorporates a green roof, while around 250 trees will also be planted as part of the scheme, which will screen the development from the passing traffic on the motorway. In overall terms, the scheme will deliver a biodiversity net gain of around 50%, well in excess of the statutory requirement of 10% in the Environment Act. All of these benefits are significant and they're all deliverable. Now, I know the focus of discussion at the last meeting was around highways and accessibility, so I'll now hand over to Andy Mosley to speak to you about those issues.
Good morning, Chair members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak in front of you again today. I'm Andrew Mosley, a chartered transport planning professional representing McDonald's as their highways and transportation consultant on this site. In terms of reaching the final highways and development proposals before you today, we've worked extensively with both National Highways and North Yorkshire Highways to reach a positive highways decision. This is confirmed in the officer's report that in highways terms, the development proposals are acceptable with no objections. When considering the application in the last committee meeting, members raised a number of valid questions on highways matters. Therefore, as applicant, we submitted a highways briefing note clarifying each of those from a technical perspective, where we recalled those being raised. This was issued on the 18th of June and is fully referenced in the updated committee report relating to the deferral. I am, however, able to provide you with any further clarity today you may have on any queries. To be clear, the planning application process fully considered all highways elements required for the full assessment of the proposals. The access itself has been designed as a left-in, left-out arrangement, widening the existing gated access, which allows 2 large vehicles to pass, and there also is an introduction of speed bumps inside the site access road to reduce speeds into the junction. The proposals also include the introduction of a physical island on the A6055 to prevent any unsafe manoeuvres. The design was subject to a full road safety audit stage 1 process and also a strategic risk assessment with National Highways with no objections raised. National Highways are content that the scheme is safe from a road safety perspective. The work also included a future year assessment of junction capacity on the Scotch Corner gyratory, which has been raised a number of times. And National Highways were content with this work, including there would be a negligible impact on capacity. Primary and key to note on this one is that up to 86% of traffic is already passing the site on the road network, and approximately only 14% would be new trips. And we believe that this is a robust assessment. Therefore, my position as a transport planning professional shared by both National Highways and the local highway authority is that all matters have been suitably addressed and that the proposals are safe in both highways capacity and also road safety terms. Therefore, the scheme would not result in any severe impacts on the local highway network. I do appreciate your time today and being able to speak to you again and also providing the clarities that arose at the last committee, and I welcome any questions if the chair believes that's appropriate today. Thank you.
We don't normally allow questions directly to the speakers, but we'll see how we go. First of all, committee members, Councillor Foster.
Hello. So I've read through the report and I picked up the impact assessment. I've got a number of questions if you want to make notes of these. So I noted that you were saying it's an only increase of 14% of trips. So I'd like to know, where did that assessment come from? Is that National Highways or was it from your own traffic assessment? And reading through the report, there's concerns all over the report saying this assessment was done, safety issues, it goes on, and I take it they've all been, can you confirm to me, they've all been addressed now, and the update on the 18th of June is where Highways England have said, yeah, we've sorted all the problems. That goes on the report on 710. It says we aren't superseded by the above, are still valid, including the following points. National Highways have confirmed transport assessment requires no further modelling. Interim travel plan needs to be developed further. There are existing services within the area, electric vehicle charging, and it goes on. So it's still saying to me there's a number of issues still to go through here. Now, that questions for you. I'll just finish off, Chair. That I've read the objections from local people that we are bound by the NFPPF. They're not really material. That there's other food outlets there. Competition is supposed to be disregarded. They've been there a long time. But my main concern, and I will say, I walked from the hotel there all the way through. It was a bit tricky. I'm quite able on my feet. I'm all right. The traffic lights were a bit worrying, but I accept they're temporary ones. But I am concerned about crossing that Duke carriageway. I think it's 6155, and I'd like you to say why your assessments think that's okay, because there will be people walking from the hotel all the way across there, and I need to be convinced now that I'm not going to leave here, whichever way I vote, and think if something happens there, I let that happen. So that's the real concern I have there. I don't think you can really put crossings on there because it's another trigger point on the roundabout. The roundabout isn't a real big problem because when it's really in full flow, the coming from Catterick, where I live, on that slip road backs up on a Friday. However, on balanced arguments, I will say that I can accept there'll be some, there's not really a massive increase, because if you're going off for food and it says services, you'll pick your choice on that roundabout. So I probably thinking, yes, there's going to be a lot, but are the same cars going to go there regularly? That's always gone there and just taking a different food offer on there. So that's where I'm at the moment. But that crossing that dual carriage, it's not a dual carriageway, that 6155 is a real problem. It really worries me. If I can be alleviated for that, it'd be really useful. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Foster made a statement, really. I'm not too sure about what the questions are that you're asking.
Who's reading the questions now?
Well, we don't want really a debate between yourself and the traffic advisor.
Okay, that's fine, Chair.
If you can briefly answer them.
I can provide succinct answers, Chair. I won't obviously get into a debate about it. The first question related to the 86% of trips being existing, 14% new. That data is from 3 comparable McDonald's sites in the UK that follow similar characteristics, being located to either dual carriageways or major arterial routes. So we take the average number of people on what we call pass-by trips. So that would be people, for example, travelling south to north on the A1. People come off and they go back on the motorway. So up to 14% could potentially be people making a conscious decision to only travel to McDonald's. Given it's on a motorway junction, that's pretty unlikely to be at that level anyway. Secondly, you asked me about safety issues and being content that the proposals that we put forward are safe in road safety terms. In terms of the work that we've undertaken, we worked extensively with National Highways, who are the consultee on the access layout. Scotch Corner roundabout itself, North Yorkshire are only responsible for the impact inside of the site access. I just want to be clear about that. The work that we undertake, we developed a design early in the process, which has then evolved to include the central reserve island going up towards the other roundabout. It's also narrowed the access with distance specifically for pedestrians crossing the access, heading to the bus stop, the bus stop to the north. In terms of satisfying you that we have done everything we possibly can, National Highways are the statutory consultee on both capacity and road safety. We've gone through an iterative process on what we call a road safety audit stage 1, and also National Highways have another document where queries are raised under something called a strategic risk assessment. So it's covered under 2 documents, and they're statutory requirements from National Highways to be satisfied that road safety is not an issue. We worked through that process extensively, and that is how the design has ended up being the one in front of you today. There are no issues that have arisen in the road safety audit that cannot be addressed at detailed design stage. This is things like the location of gullies, lining, signage, but all things that are already agreed in principle under the access design with you today. Everything we can do as an applicant has been done to satisfy road safety at the stage to bring it to planning committee. National Highways have heavily scrutinised it, and we have undertaken every step that's required to get to a position where we have.
Excuse me for interrupting. I did ask you to be brief.
Sorry, I'm not being succinct enough. I'm just trying to be clear about the process, Chair. I will wrap up by saying there are no outstanding objections from the local highway authority and National Highways. I do unfortunately have to defer to the planning officer to know the date of the holding objection being lifted from National Highways, but insofar as there is no objection from either party now. The third one was in relation to the capacity of Scotch Corner. National Highways have signed it off saying that there is a negligible impact and they believe there is no objection warranted. I can leave it at that, Chair, if that's what
I prefer you to do so.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not meaning to get into debate. I apologise.
What we're trying to do is to have you to make your statement, and then we move on from that to the committee debate.
Apologies, I'm just trying to be clear on things there, Chair.
There is a bit of disquiet about this, and so whichever way the vote goes, I will remind the committee that if they are minded to refuse it, that they need to give reasons. Councillor Mrs. Peacock.
Well, it's just a question really, because it's on page 35 under planning balance and conclusion, because what it's saying here is the about a section 106 agreement for highway improvement works. Now, from what I've read, this is Highways England have to improve. Do they come under that 106? Who would be responsible that work is done? And is it going to be done before any work or before it's actually opened? I'm just, because you just said there, it's like two different people will be doing the highway safety.
So the section 106 will cover off-site highway works. So this is on National Highways land, and the legal agreement will require entry into a section 278 agreement to secure that the off-site highway works are done as shown on the plans. The works will be completed prior to first occupation of the drive-through restaurant.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I ask,
Jones.
sorry, can I ask about the planning balance? I know we're not allowed to take commercial considerations into planning decisions, but can I ask what weight we are allowed to give the pre-existing facilities in and around this site in terms of use of motorway services?
So this question did crop up last time at committee. I've briefly set out at 3.16. So each application is judged on its own merits. Whilst we acknowledge that there are further drive-throughs that could come forward in the vicinity of the site, we're considering at the time of writing this report, the accumulation would not have an adverse impact on the surrounding area. In terms of the existing facilities at Scotch Corner, we acknowledge that they're there, but as we said, each application is judged on its own merits.
Anybody else got any questions in the committee? Well, we need proposals from somebody. We need proposals, rather granted, deferral or refused, and with reasons. Councillor Foster.
As much as I've got concerns about this, there is no material reasons why this can't be granted, in my view. And reluctantly, if nobody else is going to do it, it looks like the responsibility comes to me, and I'm going to have to say we're going to have to. Well, in my opinion, it has to be proposed. We're going to accept this. I can't see any reasons for reports on the highways as being spoke to me. So, regrettably, nobody else can do it. So I'm going to have to say I propose we accept this application, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
It is with great reluctance that I second Councillor Foster's proposal, basically all the same reasons. I don't particularly like this application, but I don't think we have any grounds for refusal, unfortunately.
Does anybody have any further comments? Councillor Hugill.
Yeah, just before we go to the vote, I do share the concern, and I think I made the point last time about being able to walk around that roundabout as a pedestrian from different parts of the roundabout. I walked for the site meeting. I parked in the Holiday Inn. I walked to when I eventually found it, walked to the site, and the most daunting bit was the piece crossing the A66 exit entrance, whatever. I'm told we were getting a crossing there, a proper crossing. Is that I think I'd like that confirming before we take it any further. And also, I'm thinking there's nothing on the 6055 that Councillor Foster alluded to that he had a concern with. There's nothing going to happen there in terms of crossings. But just other than that, it was quite daunting, but it appeared to be safe if you followed all the lights. But I tell you what, you don't have a lot of time, so there is issues there. But yeah, you could just explain the actual proposed crossings. Thank you.
So the proposed pedestrian crossings, there's an existing uncontrolled crossing just there. And that is going to remain as existing. In terms of access at the junction, currently the pedestrian crossing is more forward and it's going to be moved back so there's less crossing distance for pedestrians here. So in terms of this application specifically, there's a new pedestrian crossing into the access junction and the existing uncontrolled crossing is to stay the same there.
Councillor Peacock.
No, you're all right. Mine was based on the, walking section. So it's been answered.
Any more from the committee? It's been proposed and seconded that this application be granted. Those in favour of granting, please show.
Can members just clarify that the proposer and the seconder and the vote was taken on the recommendation as per the officer's report?
Yeah, on recommendations by the officers. Thank you.
Right, well, that's granted then, unanimously. The next application is agenda item number 5. Full planning permission for holiday accommodation at Ironstone, Moulton, Richmond. And this application is to be presented by Jonathan Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this application seeks consent for 2 holiday cabins with associated infrastructure on land at Ironstone, Moulton. Since publication of the agenda, an update report has been issued following the site visit on Monday. The update addresses 3 matters raised by members at the committee site visit, which was refuse recycling, accessibility, and the proposed parking and turning area. It also reports further consultation responses from Historic England, the principal archaeologist, and the Highways Authority, and recommends 2 additional conditions. This slide shows the site in its wider context. The site's located on the edge of Moulton, with open agricultural land extending to the north, south, and the west, and existing residential properties to the southeast. You can see that the site relates closely to the existing settlement, but sits on its outer edge, transitioning into open countryside. The site comprises an area of grassland associated with the wider Ironstone site, with access taken from the existing entrance to the site to the south. The extent of the red line includes both the siting of proposed cabins and associated infrastructure. Members asked about the proposed parking and turning area during the site visit. Following the committee site visit, the Highway Authority undertook a further review and site inspection and has confirmed that it remains satisfied that the proposed parking area is capable of functioning for its intended purpose and raises no objections to the arrangements proposed. The circled area identifies an imported soil mound, which the applicant confirms will be removed. Officers have received a copy of a 2018 scheduled monument consent which authorised the placing of this material. Historic England and the principal archaeologist have reviewed the additional information since the site visit and have raised no objections. A further condition is recommended requiring details of the soils removal within the proposed car parking area, and this includes the existing and proposed levels, cross sections, and details of surfacing. This condition ensures that car parking, the turning area, and the entrance gate can be operated safely. Measures to provide archaeological monitoring and protection of the scheduled monument is also included in that condition. So just quickly looking around the site, this shows the entrance from different directions. Members can see the access is established. Visibility is relatively open in both directions, and the surrounding area is predominantly rural in character. This is the same location looking towards the east. This view is taken from within the site along its edges. It shows the open nature of the site, the topography sloping down to the north, and vegetation along the boundaries can be seen, which provides screening. This photo looks east from the western edge of the site. This photo looks west from the eastern edge of the site. The slide shows the proposed location of one of the cabins. Both are positioned toward the lower northern part of the site, away from neighbouring properties, and benefit from existing landscape containment. This photo looks towards the intended site of the second cabin. And this image shows the northern edge of the site. This boundary is defined by vegetation and provides a degree of containment. It also forms the transition from the site into the wider countryside. This is the proposed layout. The cabins will be located towards the northern part of the site, with parking and turning provided to the southwest. Proposed landscaping would provide additional screening. Foul drainage would be managed by, it would be managed via screen storage tanks behind both cabins, with water and electricity supplied from Ironstone itself. These drawings illustrate the proposed design of the cabin. They're relatively modest in scale, designed as self-contained units, including saunas. The design seeks to provide a contemporary low-key form of development, with consideration given to the materials and the appearance of the countryside setting. This slide illustrates the relationship between the proposed and the scheduled monument. As set out within the report, the cabins have been positioned away from the most sensitive archaeological features and are proposed to be constructed using above ground no-dig methods. Following the committee site visit on Monday, officers obtained a copy of the scheduled monument consent and sought further advice from Historic England and the principal archaeologist. Neither raised objection to removal of the imported material within the car parking area as proposed, subject to archaeological supervision, and any separate scheduled monument consent that would be required. Officers therefore remain satisfied that the proposal would not result in harm to the significance of the scheduled monument. Members have before them the detailed assessment in the committee report. The principal additional matters raised during the site visit were refuse collection, accessibility, and parking and the turning area. Officers have reviewed those matters with the relevant consultees and remain satisfied that they do not alter the planning balance. Historic England, the principal archaeologist, and the Highways Authority raised no objections further to their recent review of the additional information. The recommendation is that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions in the committee report and the additional conditions contained within the update report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Moulton Parish Meeting is represented by John Gentry, public speaker.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. I'm chairman of Moulton Parish Meeting. Members will have had the opportunity to read the 3 submissions already made by Moulton Parish Meeting. I'll highlight today the continuing concerns some of which Jonathan has answered, but I will include them in here regarding this application. Moulton is surrounded by a number of areas of scheduled monument reflecting past Neolithic and medieval settlements. These have remained undisturbed for centuries, and the landowners of this land regard themselves as custodians of these historic settlements, and as such have left them undeveloped except for minimal maintenance. The applicants have indicated in documents that they wish to gain an income from the land and enhance the historic awareness through encouraging visitors to stay in the cabins. Other landowners in Moulton have accepted that the land they own is not for development, and attempting to derive an income from the land, other than perhaps grazing, runs contrary to owning such land. Residents are concerned regarding access on Scurra House Lane, where the plan is to create 2 parking spaces and a turning area. A significant amount of soil, which has been covered, will have to be removed within the scheduled monument to create this parking space. This is a narrow road at this point, and any vehicles in addition to the 2 for guests will have to park on verges. In earlier proposals, the applicants added a communal waste bin in the parking area. There is now no mention of this, and Jonathan has covered that aspect as a condition. The applicants suggest they propose to, and I quote, educate guests and visitors and offer optional seasonal tours. The nature of the location is not suited to such activity, either from access or disturbance to neighbours. It's proposed that a tanker will from time to time empty the waste containers at each cabin through a long pipe across the land. The location of the lane, again, is unsuitable for such an operation. The cabins will be delivered ready-made, as you've seen in the picture, not modular. The location is unsuitable for a forklift truck or a crane, which will need a forklift truck to take the cabin off the lorry. Access from the parking location across the field will be difficult and may well cause damage to the scheduled monument. The report states surface water will drain to an existing watercourse. The nearest is at Ludlam Beck, and this is a significant distance to the east across neighbouring properties. So how will surface water actually be disposed? Residents are concerned that they may see creep in the future and more cabins or other structures on this land. In summary, this proposal will make no contribution to local character. Indeed, it will harm it, having lain undisturbed for centuries. Conservation of the asset will be compromised. There will be no public wider benefit from the proposal. Indeed, the development will impinge on residents through traffic and potential noise from those using the cabins. The application exploits the scheduled monument and must remain unchanged for future generations. Residents believe this development of a scheduled monument should not be allowed to go ahead and see inconsistencies in the submission of Historic England and their published policies regarding protection of such land. Residents have acted as custodians of this land for many years, and it should remain undeveloped for future generations. Thank you.
Members of the committee. Councillor Mrs. Peacock.
I know, hopeless. I am hopeless at times. What I was wondering was how close is the village to this site? Have we a photograph of? You know, where's the nearest house to the site? Well, this is what I was just looking. I'm looking at that, but I'm just trying to, oh, I see, yeah. The next question would be, is there a footpath into the village from it? Is there a footpath into the village from?
Sorry, is that working? In terms of the nearest houses, there are a string of houses immediately to the south. You can see that yellow star there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 houses, not including Ironstone, which was within the site to the west. In terms of the nearest houses relative to the site itself, they are on the boundary width. In terms of their nearest point to the cabins themselves, the nearest house would be approximately, I'm just doing this on the fly, 75 metres from the closest cabin. And then the next nearest would be, let's see now, 95 metres from the nearest cabin. So that's the nearest house on the west and the nearest house on the east. So it's quite a substantial distance in terms of amenity. You know, in terms of principal elevations against similar on a regular dwelling development, we'd be looking for at least 20 metres. So 75, 95 is quite a substantial distance. Included in that, there is proposed landscaping and screening, which runs the band to the south of the site. I'll show you that on the proposal. So if you look at the plan there, that dark black line, no, sorry, I'm on the wrong. That dark black line that runs to the south there is intended screening to afford an acceptable level of amenity to those dwellings. But also this line here, this thinner line to the north, is another level of screening that's intended, the detail of which we've conditioned. So we don't have precise details of that as yet.
Well, that was a bit my next question. What is the screening? Is it hedge, fence, or what was it likely to be?
It's detailed as planting, so it's going to be hedging or trees or both. But the specifics are conditioned. The indicative level and layout is considered acceptable. But as you asked again, just to repeat, you asked about the pathway. There isn't a path as such as I believe immediately from the site, but a few houses down there is a public footpath, I believe, further into the village. Heading east would be on your left. So there is an immediate area, I would say about 100 metres less, and then there is a pathway which is raised up on the verge next to the bungalows, which is, I think, one, possibly two houses along from the site. So if you look at the plan here, the pathway begins approximately here and runs along on that side of the road.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
There's a couple of sections about the scheduled monument that I just wanted a bit of clarification around. So there's one section on the remediation scheme that says it will ensure that the scheduled monument is not harmed, or that is very minor where harm cannot be avoided. And then section 11.10 talks about no harm to the significance of the scheduled monument. So I just want to clarify. That's the second one was 11.10. I just want to clarify what is the potential danger, not to the significance of the scheduled monument, but to the actual structure of the scheduled monument itself.
So there is a condition on there for archaeological supervision by a registered archaeologist who will be on site during the entire construction period. They are there to monitor the works, to brief and train any labourers of the importance of the scheduled monuments, so they understand the methodology that's appropriate and what is inappropriate. He's also there to monitor their works to ensure that they observe good practice, and also if there's any discovered unknown historic material that works are stopped, and then that is reported to us within some sort of statement, I believe, and then we go from there. So the works, the methodology, and also the proposal itself is geared around the no-dig system so that there's no harm to the existing known historic fabric. And there is a condition to ensure that, to ensure education information to the labourers, but also to prevent any damage to any undiscovered historic fabric.
Well, just to go back, we had a site visit there and it was a pretty warm day, and just to confirm with one, actually at the entrance, which we were told was quite, I'm not saying newly formed, but there was still quite a, when we went in there, it looked a bit wild. We weren't sure what we were looking at, and it was a bit dangerous, and we thought we'd left Kevin a couple of times while he was trying to find out where we were going. It was pretty, the grass was pretty long, but it is right on the access is right on where the village sign is. So it's, and as you've heard, some of the houses will be screened, which are further along there. So a lot of grass had grown, and it looked pretty like the entrance didn't look great, and we had concerns, and even how to get around without sort of falling over, because it wasn't clear exactly. Because I think there'd been some work done on the where the monument was before, and I think it was alluded that some of the spoil had been left there, and that's where there was this raised ground, and we couldn't see possibly where there was going to be an entrance, clear entrance and parking. You've seen there it was raised, and I was concerned about, you know, back bins. There should be proper refuse, and I'm pleased, thank you to our officer that's been able to confirm that the issues that were raised about turning points, about also to do with the waste, there would be someone would have to come and take the waste away. There's room, so that it is a narrow road, that the road wouldn't be blocked. So I'm more confident about being able to, what we've heard since our site visit, that all this is possible, except that the parish have their own issues, but some of the problems they've raised have been addressed. I personally don't have any problems with this, and I'm minded to grant it, but I'm interested to know what the members have got to say, otherwise I will go for the proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Sedgwick.
Thank you. I was at the site meeting on Monday, and we spent a long time there with Jonathan, and we did raise a lot of questions. We listened to the chair of the meeting group, and we discussed it then. And I am pleased, Jonathan, thank you, that you've sent us the answers to our questions. I was going to propose to grant this application, so I'm quite happy to second Heather if she wanted to do it. But I think the questions that we raised were answered. We're not going to please everybody, but I think we've addressed a lot of the situations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, Councillor Moore has actually said what I was going to say about the address with the updated documents that I've seen, has answered the question, especially the mound. I did stand on the right hand side of that because we were concerned about the angle of that, and I could see that they could, it was a lot flatter than what it's deceived in the photograph, that it looks a bit steeper than that, but it's just about agreement about the updated. But thank you very much for that.
Said then I'm willing to propose that we go with the officer's recommendation. Sorry.
This before?
No, it keeps going on. Not this one. Yeah, I would like to propose that we accept the recommendation and approve this.
Or you can't do that. It's already been proposed. You can second it if you.
No, I was minded. Oh, go on. Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks. I'll second it. Thank you.
Legal advice coming up.
Um, Can we just clarify who proposed the, councillor Sedgwick?
Councillor Sedgwick.
Can you just clarify that the proposal is as per the written update note? So it is for the recommendation in the report and conditions in the report, in addition to the 2 new conditions in the written note.
Yes, I can confirm that.
Thank you.
Any more from the committee? It's been proposed and seconded that this application be granted. Those in favour, please show. Unanimous. Right, thank you. We'll go on to item
Can
6.
I just request a quick comfort break, please, Chairman?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, 5 minutes. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we will reconvene. Before we go to item 6, Councillor Hugill wishes to make a statement.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I did obviously make a declaration on this item at the start of the meeting, and I did sort of allude to the fact that I was subject to a complaint saying that I'd been a breach of the code of conduct. I replied back to the monitoring officer saying that whether I had breached the code of conduct with sort of, and it was all to do with voting last time to defer the item, whether I had or I hadn't breached the code of conduct until I heard this application and was part of the councillors determine it. I don't think that they could judge on that, and so basically I'm just made a decision to step out of the room now, and then to avoid any further any repercussions from that initial code of conduct complaint, which was to be fair was dismissed, but they haven't given me full. It was only done yesterday. I'm still awaiting full written reasons why. I understand that it would have been nice to have had them before this meeting, but I understand it'll be a page that thick just for that one code of conduct. So, and I appreciate it'll take time. So I think to protect myself, I'm going to step out the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hugo. I might just add that I was also referred to the Code of Conduct monitoring officer, and there's no further action to be taken against me. So I'm going to make the decision to remain. I'm happy that there's no problem there. Councillor Mrs. Sedgwick.
Thank you for that. I don't know what I can say and what I can't say anymore, because I feel I'm the same. I've been queried about my code of conduct, but I feel I am actually only doing my job as a committee member on planning. I listen with an unbiased ear and I react unbiased. So I'm asking the question of the legal, Laura, am I to step out as well? Because I've not heard anything else.
I think what members need to remember that we're here today to consider the item that is to be considered today, and then you need to reflect on your position. You declared your interest at the beginning of the item. Has that position changed? And if not, are you happy to remain in the room? If it hasn't changed, then you don't have to leave.
Thank you, Laura. It hasn't changed, and I still feel that I'm a planning committee member, and I will listen to. I was at the site meeting. We talked. We discussed it with people, and I'm happy to continue as a committee member if that's still okay.
Yeah, because that's a separate issue, and we are here today to consider the application today that's in front of you.
Okay. Is that all right with you, Chair, as well?
That's fine by me. I think we're both in the same position.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. So we go to item 6, which is for the erection of a dwelling and change of use of part of the site from a paddock to domestic at High Bank Farm, Cleansby Road, Stapleton, on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. And Liam Timmins was going to present the report. I presume it's Fiona Hunter. Thank you.
Good morning. So we have an application seeking full planning permission for the construction of one dwelling and change of use of part of the site from paddock to domestic. The site is at High Bank Farm, Cleansby Road, Stapleton, near Darlington. The dwelling would be self and custom built, and if the committee resolved to approve the application today, that would be secured by a unilateral undertaking. The application is brought to committee as the applicant is a member of the council in accordance with our constitution. It was deferred from planning committee in March 2026 to allow the applicant to provide further information regarding design and landscaping, as well as the submission of additional tree and ecological information. Since then, the following information has been submitted: a renewable energy measures, agricultural impact assessment and tree plan, sustainability statement, planning statement, landscape and visual assessment, and hard and soft landscaping plans. These additional documents have resulted in the removal of the objections from North Yorkshire Council's ecology officer and tree officer. And here's the site. So it extends to 0.35 hectares. You can see the red line there is the extent of the site. You can see a cluster of buildings to the northeast. You can see a tree belt separating the site and the village of Stapleton. The access is from Stapleton Bank via an existing farm access. The local highways authority have no objection in respect of the access. And we'll move on to the next slide. Here's an aerial photograph, which I always find those helpful, as well as the plan itself. So you can see the approximate location of the new dwelling is the yellow star. You can see the cluster of buildings, the tree belt, and again, the village in the red circle. In relating to policy, the dwelling is in the position of the yellow star, and the development limit of Stapleton is shown there in red. That is out in our policy maps, and it's approximately 170 metres between the two. Due to the distance to the village, the intervening woodland block, and the lack of direct access route, officers do not consider the site is adjacent to the village. When we consider what adjacent means, it is the normal dictionary definition, which is close to. And here's a plan just showing the other buildings nearby. So this area in the hatched is a children's nursery. So it's got some buildings here and then another one here. And then there's also an existing farmhouse, which is about 50 metres from the new dwelling to the actual dwelling itself rather than its garden. It abuts its garden land. And then these are agricultural buildings relating to the farm. There's a public right of way, so the new dwelling is around here, and this is a bridle way. Unfortunately, the bridle way isn't great in terms of connections. It's connecting a fast road to another fast road, but it is a feature, and obviously any public right of way is usually positive. The village benefits from a good bus service, and it is 500 metres walking distance from the proposed dwelling to the bus service in the centre of the village. I had a look, and so, for example, today, if I wanted to get a bus before 6 p.m, I'd normally only have to wait 30 minutes. The village also has a public house. So here's the walking route. So unfortunately, there isn't a footpath. This is the access. I think you would walk up here if you chose to walk. There is a pinch point here that means I think a lot of people wouldn't feel safe to walk, and I don't think it would be safe to. It changes to 40 miles an hour, and then there's a metal barrier here. When I visited the site on Monday, it was quite overgrown, so again, it wouldn't be that easy to step onto the verge. However, you could perhaps get a lift if you were able to, or park your car in the village to use the bus service. And then if we go a little bit further out, it's 8 minutes drive to the centre of Darlington, the area that's pedestrianised for those who know it. And that's Stapleton, so the dwelling's approximately here. Looking at the dwelling itself, it's a full application, so we know the details of the layout, etc. And here it is. This is the latest landscaping plan. So you can see they've got some gravel, they've got some hard courtyard landscaping. They are proposing new hedges, a couple of new trees, and they're also retaining the trees behind it. For those who came to the site visit on Monday, there's orchard trees. And here is the elevation. So it's slightly unusual design. It's quite long and linear. And part of the dwelling is 2 stories, and the 2-story element is 7.34 metres to ridge. The single-story elements vary in height from 4.3 metres to 4.5 metres. There's a mix of materials. So they're proposing brick and stone for the walls. So the red's the brick, and then slate and pantile roof, with the darker roof being the pantile. And here's what it looks like in massing. It's just a simple sketch model, so it doesn't give you a full visualization, but it just gives you an idea of the massing And you can see the access is on the left-hand side, curving around behind it. And here is the floor plan. So it's got 2 bedrooms at the first floor well, it's not in the roof at the first floor. And then there's 2 further bedrooms at ground floor. And the scheme has been designed to be fully accessible in accordance with that building regulation additional provision. So if you're a wheelchair user, for example, the doorways are slightly wider than a normal house to allow that. In terms of sustainability, they have provided more information on that. So they're looking at heating the property via a biomass heating system. They're proposing solar panels, an air source heat pump, and the dwelling, if approved, would exceed Part L of the building regulations. And that also is a requirement in the adopted development plan. Electric vehicle charging is going to be provided. However, please note that is actually a building regulation requirement for all new dwellings in the country. And there's ample space for bicycle storage. Foul water would be dealt with by packaged treatment plants. So the proposal would result in the domestication of the site visually, and that would be softened in due course by the hedgerow and the trees once they were established. And here's one of the new pieces of information just proving that those large trees at the northeast of the site would be protected. There's a slight intrusion into the root zone, but not to an extent where you would expect it to die or become diseased. And some site photographs. So this is right near the highways, where the gate is. The dwelling would be approximately here. Those were the large trees that I mentioned. And here is the site. So the dwelling would require the removal of this outbuilding. And then this is the nearest residential neighbour. So the site abuts its garden and the dwelling is just over here. And then again, this is the same tree in this photograph. We're at the northeast, very northeasternmost part of the site. That's one of the nursery buildings where the children are. On the site visit on Monday, we did hear an adult and a child from the nursery, but it wasn't particularly loud. It was just when you're in that corner, you were aware they were there. Stapleton and Cleasby Parish Council raised no objection to the proposal. 8 local representations have been received, raising objection on different grounds, and these include the principle of development and fair design in their opinion. Contextually, it's really important material planning consideration that this adopted development plan area only has a 2.7-year land housing supply. We should actually have 5. Another positive thing in favour of the application is the house is self and custom build, where the applicant has been involved with the final layout and design, and they will go on to live in the property, and that would be secured by a legal agreement. The MPPF is a strong material planning consideration, as we all know, and paragraph 11 sets out that local planning authorities should, where the policies which are most important for determining an application are out of date, grant permission unless any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. When assessed against the policies and the framework taken as a whole, having particular regard to key policies for directing development to sustainable locations, making efficient use of land, securing well-designed places and providing affordable homes. The policies set out in the adopted development plan are partly out of date in respect of how much housing we need. We need approximately double what we set out in the plan. But the location where we're directing houses is not out of date. And unfortunately for this proposal, this is not a location that is supported by the adopted development plan. And therefore it would be contrary to paragraph 11 of the MPPF. So the recommendation is one of refusal today for the following reason. The proposal represents an isolated dwelling in the open countryside, outside and physically detached from the development limits of Stapleton and unrelated to the established settlement pattern. As such, it conflicts with the spatial strategy set out in policy SP4, as well as policies CP4 and CP8 of the Richmond local plan, which seeks to direct housing to sustainable locations and restrict residential development in the countryside. The proposal also conflicts with paragraph 84 of the MPPF, which requires decision makers to avoid isolated homes in the countryside unless specific exceptions apply. none of which are met on this occasion, and therefore the development is acceptable in principle. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. The public speaker is Beverly Booth on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here representing Milburn Planning, who are the agents for the applicant. Good morning, Chairman and members of the Planning Committee, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this proposal. I would like to begin by thanking officers for their engagement with the application and the pragmatic way in which it has been considered. I would also like to thank members of the Planning Committee for taking the time to visit the site on 2 occasions, as seeing the site in person is particularly helpful in understanding its context and relationship with its immediate surroundings and Stapleton. This application was previously considered by the Planning Committee in March, when it was resolved that additional information was required in relation to design, ecology and tree matters. Those matters have now been addressed. The Council's ecologist raised no objections, and the remaining issues relating to trees can be appropriately managed by planning condition. There are, therefore, no outstanding technical matters that would justify refusal on those grounds. The principal issue now before members of the Planning Committee is the officer's conclusion on the principle of development in the countryside. As members of the Planning Committee will have observed during the site visit, this is not an isolated parcel of land in the open countryside. It sits immediately adjacent to an established group of buildings comprising agricultural use, a thriving children's nursery and residential property. The site is more appropriately characterised as an edge of settlement location that is closely related to existing development rather than a remote countryside location. The site also benefits from an existing vehicular access and safe defined pedestrian route connecting to Cleasby Road, the public house and nearby bus stops. These routes already form part of the movement network serving the area and demonstrate that the site is physically connected to the surrounding community. In terms of accessibility, the nursery is approximately 50 metres from the site, whilst the public house and bus stops are around 500 metres away, representing approximately a 5-minute walk. These distances are comfortably within the 800-metre walking threshold commonly referred to in Active Travel England and Chartered Institute of Highways and Transportation guidance. The site is well connected to Stapleton and to the public transport network serving Darlington, Scotch Corner and beyond. The planning practice guidance makes clear that sustainability should be assessed in its local context. In rural areas where settlements are naturally more dispersed, development that is well related to existing services and infrastructure can still represent sustainable development. That is particularly relevant in this case. The NPPF also supports the delivery of self-build and custom-built housing. This proposal would make a meaningful contribution towards meeting identified demand for self-build plots while delivering a high-quality, energy-efficient home, incorporating renewable energy technologies and electric vehicle charging infrastructure. In relation to landscape impact, officers' concerns are acknowledged. However, the submitted landscape assessment demonstrates that the proposed dwelling would be experienced in the context of the existing cluster of buildings, rather than as an isolated feature within the wider landscape. The existing built form, established access arrangements and additional landscaping, secured by condition, if considered necessary, would ensure that the development integrates successfully over time. Importantly, there are no technical objections from the relevant consultees. Highway safety, residential amenity, drainage, flood risk, ecology and arboriculture are all considered acceptable, subject to appropriate conditions. Natural England raises no objection and neither does the Highway Authority. Members of the Planning Committee are asked to weigh the limited and localised landscape effects identified by officers against the benefits of the proposal. Those benefits include delivering a self-built home, providing a highly sustainable and energy-efficient dwelling, and making effective use of a site that is closely related to existing development. For those reasons, it is respectfully argued that the proposal does not conflict with the local plan and national planning policy when read as a whole. Accordingly, members of the Planning Committee are respectfully requested to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Fiona wants to come back to add to a presentation.
My apologies. I focused on the principle of development reason for refusal, but there's additional 2 reasons for refusal, and they relate to the landscape harm and the visual harm to the countryside. I think these photos articulate it best. There are that cluster of buildings nearby, but visually they're not very prominent in the landscape. So that's officers' opinion on that matter for you to also consider today. And apologies.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. I remember where we left this at the last time we had this application, and I'm really appreciative of 1.4 that says there's been some improvement from where it came from last time. They're all for function there. So I am currently, however, minded to support the recommendations for refusal. I can't really see an exceptional circumstances that would depart from the policies. And I did say last time that I was looking for a build that was outstandingly architectural, and I can't see it. I said that last time, I still can't see that. Also, it departs from policies CP3, CP4, CP5, as well as national plans policies. I acknowledge it's a proposed south build, which is really welcome in the areas. But we must stick to, in my belief, the conflicts of the national planning policy of isolated homes and countryside. I don't think there's any doubts of, and please, when the officers come back at me, of there being any doubt this is as it is in open countryside, regardless of whether I think it is or not. I'd like to know, one question is, how do you make that decision and how it's gone? So that's where I'm at the moment. I can't see, from all the reasons that the officer's given, from departing from the policy, I can't see at the moment, but I'm open to listen to other debates and see where we go from this. But I'm in the same situation where I left the meeting with giving the applicant the opportunity to do this. There's some great things in there for sustainability and that, but is this an outstanding piece of architecture? I can't see it. It's to me, it's an undulating building. There's a bit flat and there's a bit tall. It's just a bit different for me. I have been involved in other applications of outstanding ones where they have grass roofs and all sorts of different things. And biomass, doing the biomass heatings, that it's been done other places that's not considered outstanding. It's good, but I don't think it's outstanding. So I will leave it there and listen to others' reports. But at the moment, I am minded to go with the office recommendations of refusal. Thank you, Chair.
But that isn't an actual proposal.
No, I'm open-minded and want to listen to discussions. I might be able to persuade it by what other people say. I want to listen to what the other councillors say, but I'm minded to at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Foster asked, how do you define open countryside?
So the countryside element is just the simple fact that you're not within a settlement. If you're not in a settlement, you're in the countryside. In respect to open, you would consider one aspect of openness is visual openness. So you can see from these site photographs that there's limited trees, there's limited enclosures. So it is a relatively open area. And then anyone who came to the site, you could turn around, and when you looked to the north, south, southwest, it felt quite open. The cluster of buildings to its east are quite enclosed. They've got these large trees around them. They're grouped together, and this is just a little bit away and out from that more enclosed area, that cluster. So that's officers' opinions, but I can see why it's a debatable point.
Councillor Mrs. Moorhouse.
Thank you. I wasn't at the last planning meeting when it was discussed. And I found the site visit very informative because I hadn't realised the extent to what exactly was on the site. And I don't repeat what's been said, but I was quite amazed how much with the nursery school, the house, the buildings, how close everything was. I thought this when I was looking and we said open countryside, I wasn't expecting to be having read this. This is open countryside. I don't. Own interpretation to me wasn't open countryside, but we'll leave that there. Could we just go back, Fiona, please, to the map with development limits on, which we showed earlier, because that shows the development limits. This is what came in my private path. Because it shows exactly where that relates to, and I can see outside of the development limits on the in my which I had in my. Sorry, that's the one. It's possibly yeah. Okay. There are houses already outside of there. Presumably, it must have. This has been put. Whoever made this decided where it should be. There are houses already outside there. You know, I would consider not indifferent to what we're talking about. So, I have an issue if it's based on that. I mean, Kevin might feel that the actual building itself isn't particularly brilliant, but I could see looking from another perspective, it appears to suit people possibly in wheelchairs or whatever, and it'll tick all the boxes to do with green energy, which I know is one of the major issues. So I've no problem with the design of it, but I'm struggling to think that is it 500 meters supposedly from the boundary, and there is opportunities to say with active transport for people to get into the village from there. It's a balance now. We're looking at the delivery of one self-building, giving it positive weight, limited economic benefits during construction, standard sustainability measures, low carbon high technologies, and on the other side we've got an isolated dwelling. Well, I dispute with that because I don't believe, in my opinion, that to me, in interpretation, that's not so. And suitable accommodation for poor access to services and reliance on private vehicles, total rubbish. I mean, I'm not being funny, but it's a single track road. I did have a job finding it, as you know, Fiona, but it's onto a road and it's just outside the village. Harm to landscape character, encroachment beyond a defined. There's an old stable block there in an old paddock. To me, this would be an improvement. And I thought that some of the buildings further down looked a bit rackety. The design and form fails to respond to appropriate to its rural context. Well, I'm quite sure if we looked at some of the houses that are outside the settlement on there, they would be all quite different. But it is a balance, and I think we've also looked at the fact that shortage of housing. I know it's only one house, and we don't want sporadic. We're not looking at putting a bungalow or in a field. It is more or less contained within a group of. So I'm minded at this moment to go against your recommendation. It does happen. We were yesterday at National Parks planning meeting where we all objected to the officer's recommendation. It's not personal, but sometimes it happens. But it's the balance, and I think the balance this time is in on for me to not go with your recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Peacock.
Are we just on questions or are we sort of part debating?
Fiona first.
Just a quick one, just to be absolutely clear that you make a lawful decision today. This is the development limit map, this one. And the one with the circle is just the villages in this kind of location. So just to make sure you make a lawful decision, just for clarity. Thank you.
Sorry, Mrs. Peacock, your turn.
As a question, I just wondered if you'd heard anything else from the parish council since you've done the papers. Have they made any more? Because I mean, with it going on over time, have you heard anything else from the parish council?
I'm just checking that as I'm not the case officer. No, they only commented once in September last year.
Thank you. I'll speak later.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I've got two questions. First of all, the pinch point on the road walking into Stapleton, should Highways England or our Highways Department have raised that? Because I know that neither of them had any objections.
Yes, so it's not a national road, so it is the North Yorkshire Council Local Highways Authority. I'll just check if they've mentioned that at all. So they've specifically considered the access and could consider it safe. They haven't specifically discussed walking to the village. So it might just be the case that they either haven't examined it, but they certainly haven't advised us on whether they consider it to be safe or not. So I think it's, you know, walking along any road has a slight risk. It is quite a straight road. There is a slight hump which would affect visibility. And I think some people would feel safe and do it, some people wouldn't. And I think that's the reality.
If I could go to my second question, when you were showing the photos up on there of how you were defining open, obviously in the plan there are a number of trees to kind of cover the view from Stapleton. Do you consider that basically sufficient to camouflage the visual impact or lessen the visual impact of it being in open countryside?
Yes, so in terms of receptors, I don't think you'll be able to see this dwelling from the village at all because of the woodland block rather than these trees. It's the block itself. And then actually along the road, let me just go to an aerial. There are trees along here as well. So when you're driving past, you might see some glimpses, and in winter it'll be more visible, but it's not going to be highly visible to a large number of people. People using the public right of way are probably the biggest receptor. So in that respect, it is a matter for yourselves as the decision makers to consider what level of harm or whether you think it's negligible, etc., with those additional points.
Well, I'd just like to make a comment myself. On the site visit on Monday, it was demonstrated clearly to me that the application site abuts the nursery lawn, which is the built form and part of the village. I know that the nursery was, or at least I've been told, that the nursery was created because of a farm diversification scheme. Nevertheless, it would have to be conform to planning policies. So I can't see that this is an isolated development at all. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. I think I know where I am here. I mean, talking about, use the word abuts, I think maybe it's adjacent to buildings might be this. But I want to be quite clear here. This is in outside the areas of development. There's no doubt about that. And there's more than one reason of this open countryside or abuts all this. So I think I know where I am now. And I'm going to say, I believe the officer's report has carefully and thoroughly addressed the planning merits in the application and has reached the conclusion that is consistent with both local and national planning policies. And I'd like to recommend I support the refusal on 2.1 for the 3 reasons, 1, 2 and 3. That addresses all the points. It's not just one thing. There is a number of things here that I believe it doesn't comply with local and local planning policies, and CP 4, 6 and 12 are mentioned as well. And it goes with the local plan of Richmond is there. It's clearly outside the area's developments as well as the other things. So I make my position very clear. I support the refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Take that as a proposal. Members, any more comments, proposals? Councillor Jones. Oh, Councillor Richard Peacock then.
Councillor ladies first.
Yeah, well, the one thing I have done, I really have studied this, read it 2 or 3 times and really taken, you know, making sure that I have read it properly and looked at everything. And to me, there is 1 or 2 contradictions in how I look at it. As you know, I've quite a lot of experience of North Yorkshire Yorkshire Dales National Park planning, so I do tend to have a good take on planning. And one of the things that I've sort of realised is that what is in the papers is much, what the officers have put together is very much based on the open countryside. That's the thing. It's not, it's out of the boundary, it's away from the village, it's in the open countryside. But I think it was alluded to by the chairman. There was 9, I mean, that's just what I've read in the papers, 9 planning applications that were granted, which on that site. So they must have been out in the open countryside at the time, and yet, you know, they were all passed. And so really this starts to get more confusing. And the point is that it seems to me that, you know, for landscaping purposes, I think you've clarified that already here. But in actual fact, it was an old buildings there as well as all the other buildings. So anybody that's been walking on the footpaths in the past, the section you say that may be more so, they'll have seen all those buildings anyway. To me, it is like a farm complex. And the other point is highways are very clear. They think of it as a farm, you know, as a complex, because they say it's going to be able to use the same drive, no problems with highways, no objections. So in actual fact, they're taking this as not a new house being put there, you know, that they have to take great notice of exactly what the road, the highway, the safety, because they haven't needed to, because there has been this happening all the time there. So that's another reason. Now, this idea that it's you can't walk to the pub. I've never really come across that ever before in planning. You know, that's never been an issue that, you know, and now let's face it, the whole of North Yorkshire, except for the main urban towns, has no footpaths. I mean, if you go anywhere up the Dales, there's no footpaths whatsoever. And people do get used to it. The last application, when we're talking about that same sort of issue, it's the fact that there it was all right. I know it was 95 metres or 75 metres, but it was perfectly all right there to actually be walking where there was no footpath. And so to me, I don't think we can be judging this on that, because as you said, officer, you actually said people can walk. Some will find it all right, some won't be happy. But who knows? Get onto highways, get it cut back, get it a bit cleared there, and all of a sudden it'll be a lot easier to walk on there. So in that respect, I'm afraid I couldn't vote. I've got to vote against the officer's recommendation, basically because in the past, we have actually passed 9 planning applications there, and it is not in the open countryside. The whole of North Yorkshire seems to be in the open countryside. So to me, it's very close to the village. There's no problem.
Is that a proposal for granting?
Propose granting it.
I just think it's important to remind members that any decision contrary to an officer recommendation is open to challenge. And whilst costs isn't a material consideration for you, it is important as legal advisor to the committee that I just flag the risk of cost to the authority if this position is not sustainable on any challenge. Thank you.
Councillor Jones next. Okay. Well, I'll go to Councillor Moorhouse at simultaneous.
I would like to second Councillor Peacock's recommendation for approval.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you. Sorry, they asked the legal, just a particular question is, if it is challenged, since you've mentioned it, how many points they have to prove on the challenge? Is it just one that was wrong and then that's it, found by whatever means it goes forward?
the points of challenge would be dependent on the person who is submitting said challenge. So I wouldn't be able to say what points could come forward, but whatever grounds they put forward would be considered. Does that answer the question?
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I support the proposal. I think the inclusion of the trees mitigates enough the damage to the open countryside. I think the closeness to the steading means it's not an isolated home. But can I ask officers a question just about 10.34, which is should planning permission be granted, it will be necessary to secure the dwelling as self-built through an appropriate planning mechanism. Can I just ask what that planning mechanism is?
Yes, so it's called a unilateral undertaking. So it's similar to a Section 106, except for the council doesn't sign it. All of the obligations are actually on the land and the people that are going to move into the property. And the reason we recommend that it's required to make it acceptable is it means that they don't have to do biodiversity net gain, which they're proposing that they don't do, and self and custom builds a specific exclusion. And the second one is that it's unlikely that we have enough self and custom build plots in Richmond Shire, so that it's a positive factor in the overall planning balance. I haven't heard members discuss that much, but I would suggest that is a positive. And again, I've not heard members mention if they've given any weight to the proximity to Darlington, which has a range of services and facilities. May not be relevant to your decision, but one that hasn't been mentioned.
Can I just come back, please, Chairman?
Councillor Jones.
So that unilateral undertaking secures it as a self-built property, basically. Okay.
Our legal officer says that she wants to have clear planning reasons for going against the officer's recommendation. I would like to mention one, which is this major issue of it being an isolated property. I don't consider it to be an isolated property. It abuts the built form of the domestic area of the nursery, and that in itself to me makes it acceptable.
I think the self-build, the fact it is a self-build, and we haven't got as many self-builds, so I think that is one material consideration. I think it's the fact that the highways, and that is very important, that highways supported the application based on no objection. I think the fact that the elected democratic parish council had no objection, and what we were talking about all the time was near to the village. So that's another thing. And the fact that it is within a complex. It is not a house in an isolated countryside. And I think since you mentioned it, I think it's absolutely right that, I mean, to me, what is it, 8 minutes, or is it 8 minutes? 8 minutes away from Darlington. Good grief, when I've lived all my life 30 some miles away from Darlington and North Allerton and everywhere else, Lancaster, Kendal. To me, to be so, you know, it's very accessible to what we always say, so it's sustainable based on that. I think anybody else come up with something else, because I do think we make sure that we've got plenty of things in there.
Thank you. Fiona.
That all made sense, thank you. There was one point raised that's not a legal planning material consideration. So the fact that the parish council haven't objected, whilst that's useful contextually in terms of actually making a lawful planning decision, it's the content of people's comments that are the material planning consideration that you give weight to. So the fact they haven't objected or not, I would suggest taking that out of the reason for approval if that's where we land.
Is it the fact that it is amongst a whole load of buildings? So that's a material consideration, the fact it's within a complex, so it isn't in the open countryside. Thank you.
Everything else you said was material planning consideration.
Mr. Worthington.
just to advise members, if you look at the recommended grounds of refusal, then effectively by taking a decision conscious of that, you are reaching a different conclusion. So you need to look at each one of those and explain to us why you believe that's not the case. So the word isolated is used a lot in the 3 grounds, and that's already been explained. And if you could just continue to sort of elaborate on landscape harm, isolated, etc., it will be helpful.
Councillor Jones.
Tom, yeah, can I also include the contribution to the 5-year housing supply in the recommendations for refusal, because obviously we've only got 2.7 years worth of supply. I think on the issue of damage to open countryside that Mr. Worthington raised, I would suggest that the trees, I think we all agree, provide sufficient mitigation to damage to the open countryside, whatever way we might want to phrase that.
Right. Any more comments from the committee? Our legal officer's got a comment.
Because the application, if approved, would be subject to a unilateral undertaking under section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act, and we don't have an acceptable one before us, I would ask that the resolution be amended to, and obviously we don't have conditions before us, so if I could just possibly suggest some wording for the proposal, that it would be minded to grant planning permission subject to conditions to be drafted and the prior completion of a unilateral undertaking under 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act to secure the property as a self-building custom dwelling, with the decision delegated to Head of Development Management in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair.
Is that clear?
I absolutely agree with that, because there will be needing conditions. Make sure these trees, make sure everything that was there, and make sure it is tied up to the self-build, because that is important. I do want to see that, because that's one of the, I mean, as I said, I thoroughly read it. I didn't actually mention it in my little spiel, but that was one of the things that really interested me, to the extent I actually went on the government website to find out exactly what self-build meant. So I definitely would like to see that in the conditions. There was quite a number of things there that I think that the officers will make sure, because although I'm proposing it, I still very much want to make sure it is correct. I want to make sure that the planning officers are happy with putting the 106 there, making sure that what we're actually asking for will happen.
Yes, Councillor Peacock. So that proposal as drafted, it's not a decision taken today in the sense that it will be delegated to Head of Development Management. It will be minded to, subject to the drafted conditions to be drafted and the prior completion of a section 106 unilateral undertaking to secure the property as a self-building custom dwelling.
And I absolutely trust the officers and the chair and vice chairs to make sure that everything that, because you've heard what everyone's been saying here, that everything is actually in there. Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
It's more of a comment, Chair, but I feel I should mention that this application would have been refused by delegated powers by planning officers. However, it could have been called in. And the only reason this is here on the committee is because it's a council that's put the application in. Thank you.
So the proposal is now changed to minded to grant. Councillor Mrs. Peacock proposed it, and as what you've said, you're happy with that. Councillor Mrs. Morehouse seconded it. Are you happy that it be altered to minded to? Any further comments from the committee? It has been proposed and seconded that the committee is minded to grant this application. Those in favour, please show. 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 1. Obviously no abstentions. So that is minded to grant. Happy? Any other business on item 7? In the opinion of the chairman, should by reason of special circumstances be considered as a matter of urgency? There are none. Next meeting is on the 13th of August, either here or at Mercury House, depending on where the bulk of the applications come from. I hereby close the meeting.